r/AskReddit. Housekeepers who worked in casinos/hotels. What's the weirdest thing you walked into? I worked as a concierge for an upscale hotel, so, naturally, because there wasn't a line for my desk, I fielded complaints regularly. One day a woman, very nice and patient, rare, calmly explained to me that her 5-year-old opened the door to their bathroom and there was a housekeeper pooping in there. The housekeeper and the boy screamed so loudly that I had already gotten noise complaints from the adjacent rooms. Needless to say, that family got a free night and an upgrade. When you gotta go, you gotta go. I worked for a hotel chain in Colorado, and one day my coworker and I went to strip a bed and the bed was full of oranges. The dresser oranges. Side table, cans of mandarin oranges. Not exactly shocking or disgusting, but it was weird. Worked housekeeping for a few weeks. Guess the weirdest shit was a 70-ish couple left their room, so I went to clean it. Big bottle of Kai and a dildo so big even Ron Jeremy would have been jealous, left out on the bed. At 70 I'm impressed one of them could take a massive dildo. I would think the opposite. At 70 everything would loosen up a bit. I worked in a casino where I watched a middle-aged man literally shake a solid turd down his pant leg, sit back down, and continued on his machine. I turned around with backpack vacuum on and went to my lunch break. I didn't get paid enough to pick up stranger shit. Everyone knows you don't quit on a hot streak. What if the hot streak is running down your thighs? Cleaned a room that contained both a deck of Uno cards and a knockoff deck of Ono cards. Oh no. Not my story, but a friend was a maid at a cheap hotel in our university town. She has a bunch of gross and weird stories, but the most insane is when she came into work and found a full abandoned meth lab in the bathroom of one of the rooms. Her manager made her clean up a bunch of trash from the different ingredients and scrub chemical stains that must have been left by spills. Apparently the room smelled like a bad science experiment or just normal meth, and the management refused to get any police involved. I imagine they believed it would discourage their regular clientele. I believe she quit very soon after. I was a housekeeper at a dive of a hotel in Chico, California in the late 90s. A week or so before a local homeless woman had stuck her arm in a tiger's cage, a circus that was traveling through town, and got mauled. That weekend I was cleaning rooms and knocked on the door of a room paid for by a local charity organization. It turned out the guest was in the middle of sexy time. Quickly realizing it wasn't a good time to clean the room, I said I would come back later. To my dismay the woman opened the door and asked me to join her and her friend. I declined. She then reached out and grabbed me by the arm and tried to drag me in. Her arm was covered in bandages and lacerations. It was the woman who had been tiger mauled. I yanked my arm free and ran away. I'll never forget what her shredded bandaged hand looked like. Not a housekeeper, but I was a bartender at a Marriott hotel years ago. Along with regular bartending duties, I also delivered bar orders as part of room service. One night I received a typical order, wine, beer, from a room that called down to the bar. I brought the drinks to the room and was greeted by an early 50s man wearing a white robe. He greeted me and asked me to place the drinks on a dresser fairly close to door. As I went to place the drinks down I noticed the bed had between 10 to 13 dildos laid out neatly along the foot of the bed. The sizes ranged from normal to horse. They were evenly spaced and all facing towards the headboard. While he was signing I made my way to the door, and as soon as he handed me the book I smiled and said thank you, have a great night. He just smiled, and that was it. 0% acknowledgement on his end. I was an it guy for a casino. Got a call that a guest couldn't get his device connected to the Wi-Fi, so I had to go up and give him a hand. Come to get his tablet connected. He's in the room. Older guy, 60 plus, wearing a pair of gold booty shorts. He's got 3 girls. IDs meant they had to be 21, but they weren't much more than that. In there with him. Thongs and fuzzy high-heeled slippers. Topless, shameless. They want to connect the iPad so he can play some video to go along with the game they're playing. Couple bags of toys and tubes of stuff scattered all around the room. 2 of the girls were getting impatient and already playing with each other by the time I got there. I've got my own kinks, so who am I to judge? Got his stuff connected and they were able to get his movie and got it playing on the TV in the room. He tipped me a small baggie of X and Molly and a couple $100, all in $50. I took the money and let him keep the drugs. Find out later, he was a VIP card member and typically dropped $20 grand or so on the tables. This couple made a hasty retreat from a 5-star hotel I was working for. They left an entire brick of cocaine on the bathroom counter. What happened to that 3/4 brick of cocaine? The police came by and picked up that 1/2 brick of cocaine, and it was entered into evidence. Hopefully they'll be able to lift some fingerprints off that 1/4 brick of cocaine. What cocaine? A couple came to this luxury dude ranch I worked at and spent over $5,000 to stay there, only to not come out of their room the entire time. Went in to clean the room when they left and saw incredibly expensive unopened alcohol and boxes of sex toys around the room. On the bed they left a note that said enjoy. What? We threw out the toys. Who the fuck would use a used sex toy left by an unknown person? And got hammered that night. They didn't use the sex toys, they used the bottles. In the late 90s I had a roommate who managed a hotel in Manhattan. He came home one night and told me they found a 3-foot nitrous tank in one of the rooms. They disposed of it personally. These days they would probably call the bomb squad. I can answer this one. Worked at a huge water park resort. I was doing a late shift at a time of year when the resort was almost empty. So, tired of knocking on all the doors, I just barged into the rooms. To clarify, I always knocked. But I was getting tired after 20 or so rooms without a guest. Come this room on the 4th floor. I walk in, and there's an old heavy guy feasting on a bucket of fried chicken. Lights off, in front of the TV. He stared at me for a couple of seconds and I apologized before he could say anything. Left the room immediately. I later found out that room was supposed to be vacant. I have no idea where he came from, why he was there, or how he got there. Worked a summer job at a hotel near Cedar Point back in the early 90s. Went to a room to see if the guest had left without checking out. She checked out alright. Shot herself in the head on the patio. Room was on the 3rd floor. Her blood and brains dripped down 3 floors between the deck slats. Had to keep 3 rooms closed for days afterwards. Lots of power washing and bleach. Almost as bad as the fella who slipped running on the treadmill and caught his twig and berries between the roller and belt. 911 was summoned. I don't know about them, but I was working on a job in a shady part of Yakima called Yakima. We were working 12 to 14 hour days. I just left my gun in the drawer, and I'm not a cluttery person, so I just empty my pockets into the nightstand drawer every night. One day I left my gun, a roll of duct tape, some big zip ties and a knife in the drawer. When I came back, room was clean and the drawer was organized nicer. After that, the housekeeping lady would scuttle away upon my visage. I was working through a temp agency for Motel 6, so one of the other workers had a room to clean. The occupants were supposed to be gone. So the worker goes into the room, and there's a man tied up in the bed with some type of BDSM outfit on. He was gagged also. She didn't even help him lol, she just called the cops. He was fine, it was a kink of his, but the other person just left him tied up, and took all his things. Oh pick me. So I was doing one of my first few overpass desk shifts at a hotel. It had been a fairly quiet night until this point. I go into the server room behind the desk, and there's water pouring from the ceiling. Like literally just pouring out over all of the computers. So I call my on-duty security guard in my management team, who tells me to have my security guard go to every room above the server room until they figured out where the water was coming from. He finally figured it out around 4 to 6 floors up. So he gets to the room and sees water spilling out from under the door, so he knocks. No answer. Repeats this a couple times. Deadbolt was locked, so the master key was useless. He finally gets in. Maintenance came up with the deadbolt key thing, and this dude is laying on the bed stark naked, spread eagle, and this was a big dude, and there's a lady of the night also naked, passed out in the shower with it on full blast and her ass over the drain. She flooded 5 to 6 floors of rooms, 1 room per floor, all the way down to the server room. Not what I walked into, but the aftermath. 2 very business looking men, clean cut, amazing manners, 5-star reserves, high class hotel, stayed for a week, D&D sign indoor, left garbage and dirty towels outside door. Walk in. OMG. First I see a puddle of blood in the hall. Turn left into bathroom. Blood and human feces all over the place. Yes, even the ceiling. Freak out. Think someone was murdered. Investigate deeper. Used condoms tied to the lampshades. Blood and feces all in the beds. On the walls. Headboards. Desk. You name it. Condoms galore. Must have been $200 worth of them. Dirty bottles and toys, if you know what I mean. Freaking terrifying. Hazmat came in to save the day. Got a $100 tip. I can't put into words everything I saw that day, but imagine. My aunt is a hotel manager. She had to deal with a situation where a guest left hundreds of empty whippet bottles and feces all over the walls and bathroom. Apparently the guest was extremely wealthy, and when they contacted the guest's lawyer, he just asked how much they wanted for the damages and paid it. I worked housekeeping and front desk at a Marriott in my city. My very first day training an HK, my trainer and I went into our first room. There's a stack of Playboys on the bed, a $20 bill and a note. The note asked whomever was cleaning his room to leave their underwear for the $20. According to the woman training me, that guy is a regular, and she started taking the money as an creep attacks. So a week earlier, we found a dead body. Strangely pretty common at hotels. The business guys eat shit and drink heavily because they are on the road so much. Airplanes don't help either. It freaked a bunch of the housekeepers out to walk in and find a guy dead in bed. It was hours past his checkout time. It must have happened while he was sleeping. Anyway, following week they played a joke on me and took a bunch of towels and pillows and stuffed it in a bed. Looked exactly like a human under the covers, and they told me it was another cold one. They hooked up a walkie-talkie speaker, and when I got close to it, they screamed bloody murder so it blared. Scared the crap out of me. They got me good that day. Edit added a sentence and corrected a typo. I work in a really high-end hotel. One of the weird things about rich people is some of them grow up really out of touch and don't know very basic things. I had somebody once who I guess somehow didn't understand that dishes are washed and used again, so they would just throw everything in the trash. How about a reverse story? I stayed at a hotel once, and when I opened my door, the housekeeper was in the room, cleaning stuff. Her 5-year-old son was sitting on the bed watching cartoons. She apologized, said she was done anyways, and her kid left the room. I then went into the bathroom and noticed a giant turd in the toilet. No TP in their BTW, just the turd. I still have questions about that. I once worked a temp job at the Beverly Hilton in Beverly Hills. Had to regrout the bathtubs. I'm in a tub doing my work when my boss comes in and says weird right. I say what's weird? He says that's the run Whitney Houston died and I jumped out. I said wait, you guys replaced the tub right? He said why would we replace the tub? We cleaned it so yeah that was fucking morbid. I walked in on a lady standing completely naked in front of the door with her kids after knocking several times and announcing myself before opening the door to do a light service. I quickly closed the door and went to the next room.